Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released iOS 16.4 Developer Beta 3. This is available to developers now, and iOS 16.4 Public Beta 3 should be available either by the time you're watching this video or usually the following day. Now this came in at 660 megabytes, that's on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and it was about the same size on all the devices you see here. Now along with this, Apple also released iPadOS 16.4 Beta 3, macOS 13.3 Beta 3, watchOS 9.4 Beta 3, along with tvOS and HomePod OS 16.4 Beta 3. Yesterday they released tvOS 16.3.3 to the public with a fix for the remote connectivity that was for the Apple TV 4K third generation only. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the build number and talk about what's new. So we'll go to Settings, then General, then About. As you can see, the build number is 20E5229E, and this particular update does have some new features and changes, and the first one has to do with checking for a software update. Apple has said that they're going to change this, so when you check for a software update, it's related to your developer account or beta account. You'll no longer be using profiles. However, that's still working, but they've made some changes with that. And I've actually blurred this out and taken some screenshots as it actually relates specific to your Apple ID under software updates. So you'll see it had my Apple ID there, and now it shows you that it's associated with the developer beta or the public beta or both. You can also change this if you have a different developer account. So maybe you have a different Apple ID, as many businesses do that are associated with a developer account. You can actually change that and tap on Use a Different ID. Once you've done that, you'll now be able to enter that ID here, whether or not it's a different developer or public beta account, and then you'll be able to use that. It's a really nice change and something that's new in Beta 3. Last week with Beta 2, Apple updated Books with the new page turn animation. They finally brought that back, and now there's a little pop-up to let you know it's there. So you'll see it says choose a theme, page turn animation, and more to make each book perfect for you. So it's a little pop-up there telling you that you'll tap on the menu here, then you can go to themes and settings, and then you have the little page turn option. And of course it looks like this if you turn the page. So I'm glad that this is here. It looks a little better when it's in light mode as well. When you're turning a page in Books, you can see through it. It's a little translucent, and it's really nice that they've brought that back. And now there's just a little splash screen for that as well, or pop-up. Now today, Apple introduced an all-new iPhone 14 color in yellow, and we'll wait for this to load on their website, and you can see the yellow color here. Now this time around, it's only for the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Plus. They didn't update this color for the Pro models, so there's nothing new like there was last year with green. They also introduced 20 new Apple Watch bands. So there's 20 new different colors that go along with that, and they've added some of those colors into the face gallery on your Apple Watch. So with the latest update, you should see some of those colors. You have a bunch of different options to choose from depending on the face you're actually using. You can set that specific color, and of course if you go over all the way over to the Plus, you also should see Fall 2022 in here as well. That wasn't there as far as a category goes, so that's something they've added, and it's been updated for Apple Watch. So again, that's in the Apple Watch app. Now, if we go over a couple pages, you'll see if we go into Shazam and go into maybe a song we've recently found, scroll down, you'll see we have concert dates and more, but at the top here, we actually have some new options to open in Apple Music, add to Apple Music, buy on iTunes, share, view artist, remove from My Music, and what's wrong. You can tell Shazam what's actually wrong. So that's something that was new with the previous beta as well. I don't think anyone pointed out, but it's something that's been updated, and some of the wording has been updated there as well. Now, if we go into Settings, and then we go to Emergency SOS, within Emergency SOS, we have Call Quietly. They've changed the text under this to better explain what it does, and it says warning alarms, flashes, and voiceover audio will be silenced when using hold and release or 5-button presses to place an emergency call. So that's been updated, and also Apple's bringing the option for satellite connectivity to more countries at the end of this month. So maybe with a final release of iOS 16.4, we'll talk about that in a moment, but they're bringing satellite connectivity to Austria, Belgium, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Portugal. Again, they said by the end of this month. They announced that today. Now, if we go out of this Settings app and go into Stocks, there's a new splash screen. This was there with Beta 2. A new one popped up with Beta 3. It just says Market Data, Business News, iPhone, iPad, and Mac. Use iCloud to view stocks and news on all your devices. So this is the only splash screen I got this time around. Also, if we go into the Tips app, let's find that here. I think I have it in the app library. Let's just go into Tips. Tips has been updated. Now, you may or may not have seen this, but depending on what devices you have connected to your iPhone makes a difference as to what you'll see. So you'll see Apple Watch if you have an Apple Watch connected with all the different tips and new user guides. This is something that's been updated with iOS 16.4 and continues to be updated with different versions and little changes here and there with different betas. Now, within the code, there's something that I think will be really helpful, but it will take a while for it actually to analyze this. So if we go into Photos, and within Albums, at the bottom, if you have duplicates, you'll see I have 736 here. If you have duplicates within a shared library, you'll be able to delete those as well if you're actually the owner of that duplicate. So you'll be able to do that. That's within the code. I don't have it scanned yet. This takes a while for it actually to analyze all of this, and it needs to be plugged in and the phone needs to be locked. Then it will sort of do the background indexing of all the different duplicates. So that could take a while, but that's something that's a little bit new that's in the code. There's also many different updates referring to security response if you have that installed and maybe an app isn't functioning properly. It will tell you can remove it and that could restore the app functionality. So that's something that's a little bit new, again, in the code. Also, one other thing I wanted to mention is within Settings, under Siri and Search, if we go to Language and we change this either to Arabic that we have here, we'll change the language, go back. We have two new voices for Arabic and Hebrew. So take a listen. I shared some of this in my weekend follow-up this past Saturday, but take a listen to these.
مرحبا أنا سيري الرجاء اختيار الصوت المراد استخدامه.
مرحبا أنا سيري الرجاء اختيار الصوت المراد استخدامه.
So those are the Arabic voices. Let's switch to Hebrew. And for Hebrew voices, we'll tap on Siri Voice. Here's voice 1.
هاي أني سيري تبخروا الكل شلي.
Here's voice 2.
هاي أني سيري تبخروا الكل شلي.
So we've got a couple different voices. If you're seeing anything new here, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, though. Let me switch it back to what I normally use. Something quite a few people have asked me about is storage. And if we go to General and then iPhone Storage, you'll see here it says I'm using 133.1 gigabytes of 256 gigabytes used. And if we scroll down, there's cached data here where we'll have a lot of system data. That may take a while to load. However, it doesn't match the storage that's under About. So if we go into About, and you'll see here, it says 123.51 gigabytes available. That's not used, that's available. Now we had 123 gigabytes available. Now if we do the math here, 256 minus 131.8, we actually have 124.2 gigabytes available. So the numbers don't really add up. So that's something that's a little bit different still. They still haven't fixed. My system data is 18.8 gigabytes. This is cache data. I wouldn't worry about it. It uses it and then releases it as needed. Now, as far as bugs, the notification bug is fixed for me. It was with the previous beta as well, where sometimes you would bring down notifications and they would be squared off and then they would go to these rounded corners. It looks like it's fixed for me, but I did see some people say it's still an issue for them. So thankfully it's fixed for me, like I said, but if you're still having that, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Also, a bug that still remains is if we go into FaceTime, and within FaceTime, you'll see on the left I have iOS 16.3.1. On the right, I have iOS 16.4 Beta 3. Beta 2 also had this issue, and you'll see here there's no icons where it says mic mode and also video effects, so there's no little camera icon. Maybe they're changing the icons or this is just a bug, but it looks like they've actually centered the text this time around on mic mode. So it's sort of an odd bug, but it's still there. Now, a bug that seems to be fixed is if we go into Settings and then we go into our iCloud settings, scroll down and go to Advanced Data Protection, this no longer lags. Before, this was very laggy. Then you'd go into Advanced Data Protection and it would be fine. But for some reason it lagged before. Now it doesn't, which is good news. And also they've kept the updated icons for messages backups and also voice memos that actually compare to what we have on a Mac. So maybe they're going to update these with iOS 17, as I've mentioned before, but it's great that the lag is gone. And so far, I haven't had any lag on anything, whether that's scrolling, in music, or even the swipe home bug. So if I play a song here, swipe home, it seems to be nice and fast. I've had zero lag. Even with Beta 2, it hasn't returned. So I think they've finally fixed this. Hopefully it's finally resolved. And if we go into our feedback here, let's take a look at the notes. That's a little bit of a bug. It didn't load there. But as you can see here, there's a bunch of known issues still. There's actually 11 known issues and 11 resolved issues. And some of them aren't too much of a big deal, but others are. Some, such as new features, you'll see both manual and automatic software update support is now available for Matter accessories. That was there before. Other times there's issues where it says the iOS device that initiates the pairing needs to be on the same iCloud account with the Home Hub. Only the owner of a home, not an invited user, can pair Matter accessories. So there's still some known bugs in here. If you're having issues, be sure to report them in feedback, but make sure they're not actually in here before you report them, as some of them are known. There's also resolved issues in here as well. Now, as far as performance, like I mentioned, everything seems to be nice and smooth. That could slow down over the next few days, but ProMotion seems to be nice and fast, no issues there, so that's really great to see. And also the overall heat of the device, as many of you have asked me about that, it's staying nice and cool. It's a little warm as it indexes things in the background, but it's not hot at all. I really wouldn't worry about it as this manages it itself, but we'll take a closer look at that maybe with the thermal camera with the final follow-up this weekend, so be sure to check back for that. As far as battery life, well, that does take a few days to measure, as you need to see what it's like after it cycles through a few times. If we go into settings, go to battery health and charging, I'm at 98% battery health. And you can see what the overall cycles are here on the left if you're following along and you've seen those on the weekend. As far as the last 10 days, well, battery hasn't been phenomenal, but you'll see 3 hours and 11 minutes of screen active time, 4 hours and 58 minutes of screen idle time. And I used about 70% of my battery. Today, though, I've had 3 hours and 40 minutes, and that's quite good, and I haven't even used 50% of my battery. And then 5 hours and 23 minutes of screen idle time. The only thing I have to figure out is why there's so much screen idle time, so we'll have to look back at that. The Apple Store is using some time, Twitter is using a lot, and I have that turned off in the background. So there's definitely some odd issues here and there. Now, if you're wondering if you should install iOS 16.4 Beta 3, well, if you're on the public version, I probably wouldn't do that, but if you wanted to try it out on a separate device, definitely you could do that with the developer beta, or wait for the public beta if you want to try it on your main device. But just make sure you have a backup in case you need to restore. But you will need a computer in order to restore, whether that's Windows using iTunes or a Mac using Finder. As far as iOS 16.4 Beta 4 release, well, it looks like we're on a weekly schedule now, so we can expect that as soon as next week, maybe next Tuesday or Wednesday, and then maybe we'll have another beta or a release candidate. But based on this, it seems like we could have a final version by the end of the month to go along with that emergency SOS via satellite I mentioned earlier. So I would expect the beta next week, a final release probably before the end of the month or early next month, with iOS 16.5 probably being in early April. That's what we would expect. We're seeing that in different analytics on Mac Rumors and other websites, so it seems like we'll probably see that fairly soon. As far as overall benchmarks for those following along, I did run it with Geekbench 6 on here. You can see it scored 2,509 for single core, 6,240 for multi-core. I saved that into my favorites, took some photos and a screenshot. Let's take a look. And so as you can see, this week we have a little bit lower single core than last week by about 11. And this time around, we have better multi-core score, 6,240 compared to 6,209. So it's nice and smooth. We'll see how it is over the next few days. Now, if you've found anything else, or if there's anything else you'd like me to cover in these updates, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, it will be linked in the description as it always is. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.